Hi. Our next speaker is a friend of mine. I've known him for quite some time, and like our friend Rick, he's always where you want to be. It is John Spencer, founder of the Space Tourism Society, and throws a really good party. Here you go.
Thank you, Clive. Once we get this set up, what we're going to do, can you hear me okay? We're going to take a little tour of a proposed future, which includes orbital super yachts, cruise ships, racing on the moon, and it's all designed to bring in more media assets to talk about space experiences. So what we do at the Space Tourism Society is we're very focused on, I want to do the second one.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second.
That's the second half.
The second half, yeah.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh, is this a PDF file?
It's a PDF.
All right. Let's see if we can.
So what we do with the Space Tourism Society is we purposely look about 20 years in the future. And I've actually been doing this since the early 80s, where I decided that space tourism was really going to be the key motivator and key financial driver for building an extensive space civilization. My background is I'm an architect. So I'm actually a space architect. I've done a lot of work with NASA and aerospace and themed entertainment projects we've actually built around the world.
So, yeah, since it's a PDF, you can't swipe, but you can press the next slide to advance.
Okay, yeah, so I just press the next slide.
So you press the next slide, number 2. Right? Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So our whole focus, like I say, is the space experience. And let's just take a quick reminder of what is the space experience that our astronauts and our private space travelers have actually had so far. A little closer. We actually have a very beautiful planet. And sometimes we get lost in the technology, but if you really think of how beautiful Earth is, and what a magical experience it is to leave Earth and have a chance to see it from space, particularly from the distance of the moon, you realize just how magnificent really our species is that we can actually do these kind of things. And the more and more people who actually go off-world and have these life-changing experiences, I think it's beneficial for the whole civilization. So just some nice shots of Earth. And what people like to do is actually take pictures when they're up in outer space. My good friend Dennis Tito, who's the first private space traveler, flew in 2001, had a camera with film in it, took 35 rolls of it, and he would spend most of his 10 days on board the space station looking out the windows, listening to classic music or listening to the Beatles. He said it was a totally life-changing experience. That's like I say, we want to get more and more people to have this life-changing experience. Of course, when you're in space, you see the sunrise, sunset every 45 minutes. But what's most unique about going to space is zero gravity. And I see that as a designer as a wonderful design tool. And we can design three-dimensionally our environments in space. And if we actually use that approach of really capitalizing on the uniqueness of zero gravity, we can design some extraordinary places and experiences off-world. This is kind of fun. Everyone says space walk, and I always say, well, it's not really walking in space. It's basically a space float. And that's what a lot of people want to do. One of my other friends, Jim Cameron, who's a major film producer, he wants to be the first private citizen to actually do a spacewalk in orbit. And romance in space. How are we going to deal with the issue of romance in space? I am sure that the first married couple that flies is going to get a huge amount of media attention. So we actually, in the Space Tourism Society, talk about sex in space. And we're one of the leaders thinking about those kind of subjects. And it's a frontier that we really must pioneer and explore. We just had a seminar yesterday, third one of our Space Tourism Society seminar series. They're called the Space Experience Economy Seminars. And Tom Shelley, who's the president of Space Adventures, gave a wonderful presentation about what Space Adventures is up to these days. They're the group who's actually booked the 8 people who've actually flown to space as private tourists so far. And their major program right now is developing a lunar flyby, where you'll have 2 space tourists and a cosmonaut pilot fly around the moon just like the Apollo astronauts did. They've already sold one of their tickets, which was $150 million. And they're close to selling their other ticket right now. Within 5 years or so, they hope to actually fly this. I personally think this is going to be a game changer in terms of people's attitude in the business finance community, that private enterprise can actually do a flyby of the moon. There's something extraordinary going on in this space tourism, space experience business. And I also personally think this is one of the most important images humanity has ever captured. The fact that we were able to go to the moon, land on the moon, return safely to Earth, but capture this image of Earthrise, I think is fantastic. And one of the key parts of the whole reason we're going to space is to get a new perspective on ourselves, and of course tap into limited resources in space. But when we had this first image of Earthrise, we actually as a species had an opportunity to realize that Earth was a place because we had a frame of reference, the rim of the moon. And I think through future history, people are going to look back at this for a long time and say that was a magnificent accomplishment, and it was a change for humanity having that unique perspective of Earth as a place, our place. Now, the space experience, the tour of the future, let's really move forward in the future. And I've been involved, as I mentioned, in designing my concept in the mid-90s of an orbital super yacht. And the reason I'm very convinced, besides talking to several billionaire friends of mine who actually want to have their super yacht, is that when there's enough pride, prestige, and publicity, we can create a want for these wealthy individuals and wealthy corporations whose main interest for the corporation side is building the value of their brands, and using the orbital super yachting as a tool to do that, because it will get international attention, will be very successful. A few years ago in the yachting industry, we passed a milestone where the first $1 billion ocean-going yacht was commissioned. $1.1 billion invested in this super yacht. They actually call them super mega yachts or mega super yachts, and they're actually probably going to have to come up with a new name for it someday. And that is Destiny. That's my design and concept for an orbital super yacht. It's all an inflatable series of structures fused together, and it has 10 passengers, 6 crew members, and these beautiful sails, which collect solar energy and migrate that energy to charging stations, and then actually just look really beautiful. So if you're going to spend about $4 billion for your orbital super yacht, she's got to be a really beautiful spaceship. I do want to point out something here. In the center of Destiny is this 60-foot in diameter float sphere. And it's just an open sphere on board the ship where you can do anything you want. The orbital weddings, parties, sports, just contemplation. So that's the float sphere. And within the float sphere, like I say, you can have a variety of experiences. On the ocean-going super yachts, one of the most popular places is the actual hot tub, for obvious reasons. But when you have water in zero gravity, it forms a sphere. So I actually came up with what I call a hot sphere. And there it is. Within the float sphere is a hot sphere, which is basically a hot tub in space. And in the center of this area here, is the structure where you can put your legs around and keep your body outside of the water so you can breathe. It also creates the bubbles and the heat for being a hot tub. And you can have 2 or 3 of these inside of the float sphere where the crew comes out, puts the framework with their robot assistants, put the water, and then you have your float. Within the float sphere, you have your hot sphere. As I mentioned, orbital weddings, I think, are going to be a major selling point for space in the future. And and that's going to also diversify the level of interest in the marketplace for space experiences. So you can imagine the bride and the groom, the captain of the yacht actually performing the ceremony, your friends all around you in a circle holding on to each other, and having a very unique wedding experience. Now there's becoming more and more of a consensus, though, that she should probably not marry this guy. One of my artists is a little strange. And of course, as I said, most of the astronauts, cosmonauts, private space tourists, they actually love just looking out the windows at Earth or in space or the moon and just contemplating the wonderment that they're actually off-world. So I think this is going to be a very key part of the space experiences, creating these places within our yachts or our cruise ships or whatever we're developing where you have quiet time, and it's not noisy, and it's peaceful, so you can truly contemplate this unique experience you're having. Right? Space sports is going to be a fantastic marketing and financial tool for the development of the space off-world industry. And the reason for that is space sports itself as an industry is media-driven. And the media is all designed to enhance the value of these corporations' brands. There's actually very sophisticated approaches to all of this kind of stuff. What's great about space is it's very unique, it's difficult to get to. Currently it's very exclusive, which means only few players can participate, and they can use that uniqueness to enhance the value of their brands. On the moon, if you're in a habitable area and you're wearing wings, you can actually fly on the moon because it's 1/6 gravity. We're going to, this year, have a fellow skydive to break the record from 140,000 feet. He'll actually break the sound barrier. But I can imagine within 5 to 10 years, people actually skydiving from orbit. So that would be extraordinary. Maybe someday see that as an Olympic sport, or as a team sport, skydiving from orbit in different configurations. 20-minute dive, very interesting. We have yacht racing around the world these days, the America's Cup and several other competitions. And the companies spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars developing new technologies and new techniques for yacht racing. I could easily imagine solar sails doing solar sail racing within the next 20, 25 years. And so we extend the model of ocean-going yacht racing into orbital yacht racing. You've probably already all heard that there are these races in deserts, 2,000-mile long races, Baja 2000, so forth. Well, imagine extending the racing from Earth to the moon. Now, take a second and read this. Free trip back to Earth. So you can imagine someday a corporation banding together for the media value of hosting a race around the entire moon. This is extreme sports. But in order to do this, you would have to have an infrastructure established on the moon for the habitation areas, the service areas, the vehicles, emergencies, all those kind of things. Now, in a normal sense, we can't afford to do that. But when there are hundreds of billions of dollars a year spent on media and advertising and marketing, if you think of a 5 or 6, even 10-year program where there's majors competition, you could have an extreme sport event you build up to and get hundreds of billions of dollars of positive media impressions, which is what the media industry wants. And then you host the race around the moon. And it's these grand concepts that we as space people, futurists, we're supposed to come up with these grand concepts. And then when I'm very involved in the entertainment industry also, besides the real space industry and real estate development. And a number of my major movie producer friends see this and say, let's do it as a movie, which we're beginning to work on. Could be a big movie, but also some of the finance guys want to do it for real. And I keep saying, well, we need 5, maybe 10 years at least to get to this point. But people outside of our space community recognize the value of using space to garner international attention, and that's a key part of why we're going to be successful with our orbital super yachts and cruise ships and racing on the moon.
What do the sails do?
The sails collect solar energy migrated to recharging stations on board the ship. Radiate heat. Pardon me?
Why are the sails pointed towards the side?
They can be pointed just about anywhere. There's 4 sails, up and down and sideways and stuff like that. And at certain times you might shift the orientation of the yacht to gain more energy, or actually they also radiate heat away, which is an important part. And very important, they look really, really, really cool. You got to have a cool looking yacht. Oops. Okay. Okay, let's change pace a little bit. Unfortunately, these images aren't that clear, but they're really good images. So we have real space experiences, but we can actually have Earth-based simulations, immersive experiences as a bridge between today, 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years from now. The trend in themed entertainment is immersive experiences. That's where you spend an overnight in a themed environment, wearing the clothing, doing the activities of that environment. It doesn't matter what theme it is. It could be Civil War reenactment, space camp for adults, Renaissance pleasure fair, special ops. People want these vacations where they have these extraordinary experiences by immersing themselves in the themes that they're very interested in. Now this is one of my favorite images right here. It turns out this is about 60 people dancing what Mars City might be like in the future. So, conclusion. So, what we want to do with the Space Tourism Society and a number of our other friends is we want to build a space experience industry. And the way to do that is by bringing in many resources of outside people, talents, finance. There is so much, believe me, there is so much money out there right now, over $6 trillion, that's basically is idle right now. And by idle, that means it's in trust funds, it's in pension funds, it's in banks, it's in places where it's just sitting there because people are afraid to use it. But that is actually warming up. So when things really recover, there'll be a flood of investment capital out there, and we want to grab a good part of that and bring it to the space community to create these experiences that widens our market base, widens the interest, and engages these executives and talents to help us build our industry. Does that sound good? Okay. So, capitalizing on extreme sports because it's media driven. The adventure travel community is already involved. We've flown private space tourists, and Virgin Galactic wants to fly people as soon as they can do it. Space yachts, that's going to happen for sure, I can guarantee you that. And I'll share with you my personal scheme to actually go to space is, since I'm designing these orbital super yachts, I'll have to go for a job inspection. So I'll be willing to do that.
It's a rough job.
Someone's got to do it. I'll take the time. I don't like travel, right? The finance and development community, we are so lucky that the major assets for the private space enterprise tourism industry is in Los Angeles, because the Los Angeles finance community is attuned to new industries and new innovations and understand intellectual property. The lawyers, the finance people, the accounting guys, the whole bit. So we really have access, and they're hearing more and more about multi-billion-dollar contracts that SpaceX and other companies have. As soon as you start hearing the word billion, the finance guys go, I will pay attention to this. So we have, when I do these presentations, people are really paying attention. And then, of course, the space industry. I see our aerospace industry as the shipyards of the future. Just like the cruise lines look at shipyards to build their cruise ships, the safe ones. And if we go to the aerospace industry with multi-billion-dollar contracts, they're going to be very happy to fulfill our orders. But the great value with media and branding, sponsorship, or promotions is they're all desperate for something new and different and exciting. And that's what space is all about, particularly if we go from the space experience approach and we take it from the luxurious, sports-oriented direction. Real quickly, frame of reference, consumer goods, just the United States, $416 billion, you see all these numbers. If we can migrate some of these billions of dollars to the space industry through private space enterprise and tourism on Earth, in simulations, through real space and the media, that triangle is very powerful. So real space experience, Earth-based simulations, tours of JSC, Space Camp, Space World, Mars World, movies, TV, games, virtual world. There's a synergy that's very powerful between real Earth-based simulation and movies and media. And that grows an industry. Very important that we have these assets and we capitalize on them in an integrated way. So one of the things we're doing with the Space Tourism Society is we're hosting a series of seminars. We actually had our third one yesterday. They're limited to 25 people, including speakers, and they really get into the space experience industry, the space experience economy in a day-long seminar. So if anybody's interested in learning more about that, come talk to me, I'll let you know. The next one is on April 28th. And the reason I started these seminars was to create a friendly, open front door to new industries and people interested in space so they could become in a welcomed area, very informative, and meet some of the key people, and have a base of operations to build their interest. This is pretty much my favorite quote of all time. And that's what this is all about. Conferences like BIL, Space Up, TED. It's all about people coming together, brainstorming, coming up with ideas, and we are in charge of creating the future. It's our future to create, and let's create a positive, exciting, international, Earth species-oriented future. Again, be proud that humanity was able to capture this image. The next one we see will be through private space enterprise, I can guarantee you that. And that's the Space Tourism Society presentation, what we're up to. So thank you.